So hi dear all and a very welcome back. Today we are going to start with a new topic, that is on organic farming. Now we all know that in today's time organic farming has become like a trendy word, right? And most of the farmers are now starting to move towards organic farming. They are being encouraged to move towards organic farming. So we will understand many things in this lecture series um, about organic farming, where we will understand that what are the various methods that organic farming includes, how pest is controlled in organic farming. We will also understand that how other like livestock management is done in organic farming. We will also understand that what is the procedure that a farmer has to follow when a farmer wants to become an organic farmer, or when a farmer wants to switch to organic farming, and what are the various procedures for organic certification. So we are going to understand all of this in a series of lecture, right? So in today's lecture, this is like an introductory part where I will give you an insight into what organic farming is, right, and why we should move towards organic farming, and what are the what are the harms that are caused by the modern agriculture, right? So we start our topic with the introductory part, where first we will understand that what is farming. So farming is an activity or business of growing crop plants or livestock, right? So farming is like any activity that we carry on to grow crop plants or to grow livestock. So crop plants could be any type of plants that we want to produce, any type of plant that becomes available to the people to eat, right? And livestock includes all the animals, domesticated animals, from whom we can get the animal products, like, right? So farming includes all those activities helpful in growing crop plants and livestock. Now obviously this means that farming helps to produce food that becomes enough for the ever increasing population, right? So this is an activity where we produce food in good amount so that this becomes available to the increasing population, right? Now there is one more term that might come to your mind when we talk about farming. This term is agriculture, right? So there is a very thin line between agriculture and farming. So we need to also understand that what agriculture actually means. So the point is that agriculture is a very vast term, and this not only includes production, but this also includes research and development related to the science of growing crops, or the science of rearing livestock, right? So this includes basically everything related to cultivation of crops and livestock, or in another words we can say agriculture is the science of farming, right? So we can say that this is like a science of farming. Farming is just the term farming is just a part of agriculture, whereas agriculture includes everything: production, research and development, and any activities that is helpful in cultivation of crop and livestock. Basically it is a science of farming, right? So obviously agriculture has helped the people living in cities, because city people, they do not have time to grow vegetables, they do not have much space. So agriculture helps the city people to get the food of their interest from the market. That is possible because food is being cultivated with the help of agriculture, right? And this also obviously is helping the ever increasing population to suffice with their food demand. So farming is a part of agriculture, and therefore we can say that farming is implementation of agricultural activities, right? So any kind of agricultural activities that we carry out, right? So farming is actually an implementation, or we can say it is a tool of agriculture. Farming is a kind of tool of agriculture, right? So it is a part of agriculture, but agriculture is basically a very vast term, right? So then now this farming, it can be done in two ways. That is, it could be artificial, synthetic, inorganic or man-made farming, or it could be organic farming, right? So farming are basically done in these two ways, right? We are going to understand in the next slide in a bit more detail, so I am not gonna explain you the difference between these two right now, right? So we move towards the next slide. Now see, what are the requirements of farming? May it be growing plants, or may it be growing or may it be rearing animals, right? Both of these are living organisms, and they need certain things to grow. They have their own requirements, right? So what are the requirements of plants? Obviously the three main requirements are always there. They require land, that means to grow plants we require space. They require air, that means they require oxygen and carbon dioxide, and they require water, which is obvious, which helps them to carry out all their activities, right? These are the three main requirements, may it be for plants or may it be for animals, right? But apart from this, what do they require? Plants, they require fertilizers. Fertilizers help them in enhancing their growth, right? It makes available nutrients to them, right? So they may require fertilizer. Apart from this, they require insecticides, pesticides or weedicides. Insecticides are chemicals that help in killing harmful insects. Same way pesticides are used for killing pests, and weedicides are used for removing unwanted plants from the field that may occupy the space of the plant of our interest, right? So these are also required so that the plants get so that the plants they remain healthy, and their space or their nutritions are not being taken up by other plants. Then the plants should be healthy. Obviously whatever material that we are using for propagating, may it be seed, may it be propagules, may it be tubers, right, may it be cutting, every part of the plant that we are using for propagation purpose has to be healthy. So that is also a requirement. Then so that it should have healthy propagating material. All the material that we use should be healthy, because if the material is not healthy, ultimately your plant that will be formed will not be healthy, right? And you require certain tools to manage your farm, right? So these are certain requirements that plants have. Now let us look, what do animals require? Animals also require food. They are also living organisms. They require food to live, right, to complete all their activities. Then they also have medical emergencies, because since they are also living organisms, they have their own life, they have their babies, and they require medical emergencies. They may catch diseases, right? So disease management is also required. Waste management is required, because these animals, they have their excreta, right? So all the waste has to be managed. The excreta should not remain at the place for a longer time, right? And apart from that, hygiene is very important. So the animals, they have to be kept hygienic. They need to have regular bath, regular cleaning activities, and therefore hygiene is equally important, so that you get a healthy product from the animals, right? So these are the requirement of plants and these are the requirements of animals. Now when we manage all of this in certain ways, we name it as certain kind of farming, right? So when we manage all the requirements of these plants and animals, when the management of all these requirements is done by artificial means, that is by synthetic, inorganic or man-made means, we call it artificial, synthetic or inorganic or man-made farming, right? And when this is done naturally, that is naturally in the sense that when this is done with the help of natural resources, naturally whatever is available, when it is done in that way, this is called as organic farming. So the plants always have requirements, the animals always have requirement. When their requirements are sufficed, you get a good product. Now when these requirements are managed in synthetic way, then we call it as artificial means of farming or we call it as man-made farming. But when this is done naturally or organically, we call it organic farming, right? So this is the main difference between these two type of farming. In artificial farming, we usually use artificial chemical fertilizers, right? The management of water is not proper, right? Animals are also being given artificial, they are being given many medicines so that they give milk, right? So all that comes under artificial, synthetic or inorganic or man-made farming. Whereas in organic farming, it is been taken care that the nature and plants and animals and humans, they all live in a sustainable environment, right? So the main motto of organic farming is that we have to make a sustainable environment, which also becomes which remains useful for the animals, which also becomes useful to the human beings and in all to the all environment. So that's why it is important that organic farming is followed. Now whether we say man-made farming or whether we say organic farming, both of these are part of agriculture. So as I said, agriculture is a vast term and farming is just a tool of agriculture, right? And therefore agriculture includes man-made farming also and it includes organic farming also. Okay, so then now we move towards understanding that what is organic farming. So it is a technique that deals with cultivating crops and animals or livestock in natural ways. So as I said, when we take care of the fact that the crops, the animals, the livestock, everything has to be maintained in a natural way, everything has to be taken care of in a natural way, that could be termed as organic farming. So all the techniques that we utilize to cultivate these crops and to take care of these animals in a natural way, then we give the term organic farming, right? So basically this works in harmony with nature. So this means that whenever we are doing the farming activity, it should not harm the nature, the environment, the soil, the air, the water, everything should be free from pollution. None of our farming activity should actually cause harm to the environment. So this is called as going in harmony with nature. So organic farming means that there should be no harm to plants, animals, resources, or even people working with it. So organic farming says that the plants that we are growing, they should not be harmed. So we have to take care in different ways that how the plants can be saved, but in a natural way only. Likewise, animals, they should also not be harmed. They should not be given lot of medicines so that they give milk, right? So that is all things to be taken care of. Then also the resources, right? Whatever resources we are using, whatever natural resources we are using, our air, water, land, everything, the soil, nothing should be harmed, right? And along with that, the people who are working in this, in the process of organic farming, for example the farmers, they should also not be harmed, right? Now see, what happens in modern agriculture is, since we utilize a lot of fertilizers, ultimately our soil is getting contaminated, our resources, our water, our soil, our air is getting contaminated. This is ultimately affecting the plants and animals, and also this is affecting ultimately the people working with chemicals, right? So the farmers are also getting affected by chemicals, and when these products they reach to us in the market, so the products also they carry chemicals, and therefore this is like a chain which is difficult to stop, right? So we need to follow a path where none of these should harm, and it should be like everything gains from the process, and the environment becomes sustainable. So this does not mean that we need to go back to traditional methods. Now some people might think that how can we not use chemicals, and how can crops give good produce, how can animals give good produce. So by these lines we can understand that some people might think that this means that we have to move back to traditional old agricultural methods. No, the answer is no. This does not mean that we have to move back to traditional methods, but of course this means that we have to utilize the traditional methods along with the current scientific knowledge, right? Now the time has changed, there is so many research going on, there is so many scientific data available. So along with the traditional methods, we have to combine our scientific knowledge, which ultimately gives rise to organic farming, right? So it is not completely dependent upon traditional methods, but it utilizes scientific knowledge. And this also does not mean that the farms has has to be taken over by nature. So doing organic farming, not utilizing chemicals, does not mean that you are leaving your farm in the hands of nature, and you are sitting and waiting that now nature will do whatever it will do, right? So then what will happen, your produce might not get produced properly also, because you have not taken care, right? And therefore this does not mean that the farm is to be taken over by nature. No, this means that we have to combine proper techniques. Certain techniques might be needed in at some times, certain techniques might be needed at other times, right? So we have to combine properly these techniques, right, so that a healthy balance between nature and farming is maintained. So as I said, no harm should be there to plants, animals, resources, people, etc. So obviously there has to be a balance between the nature, our mother nature, and the farming activity, right? the balance should be such that crops, animals and nature can thrive together. So nothing gets harmed and they all can thrive together, and equally we all can get advantage from each other. That is what is called as sustainable agriculture. Now see, when you are an organic farmer, that does not mean that there are certain things that we need to understand basically, that an organic farmer must not see every insect as a pest, right? So for an organic farmer, every insect in the field is not a pest, right? We will be understanding in the coming lectures that there are certain insects that actually are helpful to organic farmers, where they feed upon the insects that are causing harm to the plant, right? So we will come to that point in the next lecture, but for an organic farmer, every insect is not a pest, right? Every insect is not a pest. Then for an organic farmer, every plant out of a place is not a weed, right? So an organic farmer does not think that since this plant is not something that I want to grow, it is a weed. The organic farmer, for an organic farmer, not everything is weed. For an organic farmer, he may find benefits in certain weeds and he may keep those plants, right? Then for an organic farmer, solution to every problem is not an artificial spray, right? Now we know in today's modern agriculture, the artificial chemicals, the chemical fertilizers, the sprays have become the only solution to every problem. If there is a pest, they use chemical fertilizer. If there is some kind of larval eggs or something, they use a chemical fertilizer. If they find some other kind of insect, they use chemical fertilizer. If they see fungus, they use chemical fertilizer. So for an organic farmer, the solution is not only artificial spray. There are many more solutions for an organic farmer, and we will understand those solutions later on. Now then, what is right for an organic farmer? For an organic farmer, they learn to keep the insects or pests down to acceptable levels. Now in organic farming, care is being taken that the level of the insect or pest should remain at an acceptable level, right? It does not mean killing all the insects or pests. It just means that with the help of certain techniques, we need to ensure that the insect and pest population does not increase above a certain acceptable levels, because a disease is always formed when their population increase. So we have to take care that their population does not increase. So an organic farmer will take care of this point, and they make most from the benefits that these insects or pests provide, right? Now as an organic farmer, you should always know that what type of insect can have what type of effect, right? There are some insect that will spoil your plant, there are some insects that will help your plants, right? So an organic farmer has to make most from the benefits that these insects or pests provide, right? And along with this, organic farming is also about utilizing things that you have with you, right? We will come to that point later on, but for now you can remember this, that when you are an organic farmer, not every insect is a pest, not every plant out of place is a weed, not problem to every solution is not artificial spray, but you need to keep the insect and pest at an acceptable level, and you need to understand that what benefits these insect or pest have, right? So an organic farmer has to keep these 2 points in their minds, and never these are a part of an organic farmer. So I think I have made you understand a lot about what is organic farming. Now we will understand that why do we need to move towards organic farming, right? So the very first thing, it aims to increase soil fertility. Now see, organic farming means that we are not using chemicals. Now when we do not use chemicals, it means that the chemicals are not entering into our soil, right? And as these chemicals are not entering into our soil, so the soil will remain healthy. As and when we keep on adding chemicals, these chemicals they enter into our soil ecosystem, and our soil they lose their fertility, and therefore organic farming is an activity which aims to increase soil fertility by not using fertilizers. Second point is that it controls pests and disease without harming the environment, right? So as I said, since we are not using chemicals, but we are obviously utilizing in organic farming certain techniques that can help in controlling pest and disease. We are not using chemicals also, but still we are controlling pest and disease in a way by which the environment does not get harmed. So that is also an aim of organic farming. So organic farming is like not using chemicals and moving towards environment which is clean and sustainable. Third point is organic farming ensures that water remains clean and safe. Now how does organic farming ensure that water remains clean and safe is by the fact that what happens in modern agriculture is that we use chemicals. These chemicals they enter our soil. Now when rain falls or anything or water enters in your soil, these chemicals they along with the water they leach from your soil down the water table. They enter your water channels, they will enter into the river, into the sea, into the oceans, and they will cause harm to the organisms over there. So since we are not using any chemicals in organic farming, this ensures that our water remains clean and safe, right? And fourth is utilization of whatever resources available. So that means less input on money. Now see, organic farming, as I said, also means that utilizing whatever is available to the farmer, right? Now see, for example, let's take an example that there is a field and the farmer wants to make a boundary of the field. Now most of the time you must have seen that the boundary is made by a spiny steel fencing, right, in India. So an organic farmer will find an alternative to this method. Why? Because doing the steel fencing might take some amount of costing of labor and the materials, but when someone is an organic farmer, he will identify some another way. What he will do, he will choose some plants like cactus or some plants that are that have smell, such kind of smell which the pest do not like, or they will use some kind of plants which no animals eat. So they will use such plants around to make the boundary of the field. Now see what has happened, they have reduced the cost of the material, they are just utilizing plants, and also they have used their mind in a way that this will also save their land from the outside pest or animals, and also greenery will be maintained. So that is what is called utilization of whatever resources is available. in intensive agriculture, resources are not managed properly. In modern agriculture, what happens is chemicals are used extensively, your money is being put into agriculture extensively, right? And your water is getting spoiled, you are using more and more water for your plants, and therefore in modern agriculture the resources are not being used properly, and that ultimately leads to more input of money. Whereas in organic farming, care has to be taken that the resources are utilized in a proper way, so we need to put less input of money. Then obviously organic farming produces very nutritious food, right? If you I don't know if you people have sorry, if you people have ever checked ever eaten a food that is organically made, a fruit that is organically made, and a food that is a product of modern agriculture. Most of us are usually eating food that is product of modern agriculture, but if you get ever chance, or if you might have eaten any time an organic food, organic fruit, you will always find it more tasty, it more nutritious, you will feel the difference in yourself, right? You will feel the change between you will feel the difference between the two products, that because when something is made so naturally, it will taste good, and there are no harm in that product because there are no chemicals used. But when something is being made with so much of chemicals, right, so obviously its taste is also going to get varied, right? Then sixth is high quality feed for animals. Now organic farming, as I said, includes cultivating crops, and this also includes rearing animals, right? So when you have when you make your farming organic, you have certain plant parts, right, that will that can become useful to the animals as well. So your animals, they will get good organic product to eat, and when they will get good organic product to eat, ultimately they will give you good organic milk or milk products, right? And so this is like, when you give something good, you will it will be returned to you in the same way, right? So another thing is that you will have good quality crops. Now see, if you go into the market, you will find that organic products are very costly. The reason being that it is produced less, and its quality is much higher than modern agricultural product. So when you have quality good, obviously the price is also going to go high. So for your produce, you will get good price, and hence you will have more profit. Next point is that it ensures that environment remains safe, right? Right from the beginning of the lecture, I am just keeping on telling this point, that organic farming is all about sustainable environment, where the environment should not get harmed, no polluting things should go into the environment, and therefore organic farming ensures that our environment remains safe. So these are the some reasons why we should move towards organic farming, because this ultimately leads us to a good sustainable environment where everyone is getting the benefit, right? The plants are also growing in a better way without chemicals, the animals are also reared in a good environment, in a natural way, the environment is also not getting harmed, and we as humans, we are also getting healthy nutritious food, right? And ultimately we all are living in this environment, so our environment remains safe, right? So that is why organic farming is important. Now, the last thing for today's topic that I'm going to make you understand is that what actually the modern intensive agriculture leads to, which means that we have seen a lot of agriculture activities going on, and we call this agriculture nowadays the modern intensive agriculture. So, why is it called intensive? It is called intensive because this kind of agriculture is utilizing every resources like in a very large amount, right? Now see, what happens is, once you use chemicals, once you spray or plant your field with chemicals, next time you will use more chemicals, then the third time you will use again more chemicals, right? So the cost of your chemical use is increasing every year. Now when you use chemicals, you also have to spray a lot of water, so your water resource is also being utilized every year, right? And like for example, when you are rearing animals to get milk product, what you are doing, you are artificially giving those animals artificial medicines, right? And you are giving them regularly, daily, right, over a period of time, which is ultimately exhausting the animal and giving you lot of products. So therefore this is called an intensive agriculture, where every resource is being utilized in a very intensive way, which is certainly not good for the environment. So we will understand that what has this modern agriculture led to. The very first thing, use of artificial fertilizers or herbicides. As I said, we are continuously using the chemical fertilizers, the artificial fertilizers or herbicides we can say. These are chemicals, these are entering in your soil, and when the water, when the rain falls, these get washed off from your soil and ultimately down from your water table. It enters into the rivers and your water channels, where it pollutes your rivers and water resources, right? Now see what happens because of this. Because of this, the organisms in the water, they suffocate, they die, right? Many organisms like fish and other organisms like um, corals, they are very sensitive to pollution and they are dying, right? Also this water, the river water is being used in the villages. Right now this river water is being used as drinking water, is being used as bathing water. So ultimately we are using those that water which has chemicals in our daily life, and this is ultimately harming our health. Second is, this results in low soil organic content. Now see, as I said, the chemicals, they enter in your soil, right? Soil is always something that has to be rich in organic content, that has to be rich in the amount of microorganisms that it has to carry. Every soil, when the soil is healthy, it has to have a good amount of microorganisms, because these soil microorganisms are very much essential for the plants to make the nutrients available to them. Now when you add chemicals, all those soil microorganisms, they die therein, and when they die, your plant, it is not able to absorb the nutrients from the soil, because these microorganisms, they act upon the soil particles, whatever is present in the soil, to eat. They break down those particles, and in the process they release nutrients, and these nutrients is being absorbed by plants. But when you use chemical, your soil organic content reduces and the microorganisms die, and this ultimately gives you a low rate of plant growth. third is your dependency on fertilizer increases. Now see, what happens is, in the first year when you might have used some amount of fertilizers, right? If for example you might have used 5 kg fertilizer in your field, now your soil has already degraded to some extent because you have used chemical, right? Now next time when you will have to grow your plants in the same soil, again your soil to give a good produce, you will use double the amount of the chemical that you used last year, because now the 5 kg chemical that you used has no effect on the uh, produce, because your soil has ultimately reached to a level of degradation, right? So in this way, every year to increase the production, you will keep on increasing the amount of use of fertilizer, and hence your crop and you will become depend on fertilizer for a good product, right? So that is called intensive agriculture, where you must have seen that so many types of large equipments are being used to spray the agricultural lands. Now fourth point is that artificial pesticides are being used in intensive agriculture. Now these artificial pesticides, these chemical pesticides, they enter the food chain, right? Now as they enter the food chain, it builds up in bodies of humans or animals, and this leads to health problem. Now I suppose you all know that in a food chain all organisms are interrelated to each other. For example, some kind of crop is eaten up by some kind of insect, that insect is being eaten up by some kind of animal, that animal is being eaten up by some another kind of animal, and likewise the food chain is maintained, right? Now when an organism eats product where there is chemical present, a plant product having chemicals, so ultimately that chemical will enter into the food chain, and when that insect or animal will be eaten up by other organisms, so again some part of chemical will enter into the body of that organism as well. This will lead to health problems in the food chain. This is applicable to humans as well. Now the product that we obtain from market are all chemically produced. So supposingly you might not have cleaned your product before eating. You have a fruit and you have not cleaned, and even if you have cleaned, some part of chemical might remain to that fruit, and you have eaten, and that chemical has entered in your body. You don't know the long term effects of those chemicals, but ultimately we have many health problems, and this we can say this can be due to the entry of artificial pesticides in our food chain as well. Artificial pesticides also leads to destruction of soil microorganisms. As I said, the soil has to have some sort of microorganisms to make the nutrients available to the plant. Now if these microorganisms are not there, it decreases the nutrient availability to the plant, and hence the plant will not grow properly, right? And this also leads to poor soil structure and aeration. Now using artificial pesticides also reduces the soil structure and aeration of the soil. Now see, a good soil is something that is actually black, well aerated, it is porous, it has pore inside it, so that the gas can circulate inside, right? So when you keep on using pesticides, all these qualities of the soil are lost, which leads to the degradation of the soil. So if you have ever made compost, or if you might have ever seen compost, you will, if you take compost in hand and if you take soil in hand, right, you will feel that compost is so light, it is so aerated, it is so much porous, and it is so much black. Compost is actually the formation of dark black soil, that is actual soil material that we can say. And when you will take a normal soil, soil from a degraded land, you will feel that the soil is so heavy, there is no porosity, right, the color is also faint, right, because there is no organic matter. In any product where there is organic matter, it will be black, and in any product where there is in any soil where there is no organic matter, the soil will be like very light color, and you will not find any life in that soil, right. So if ever you might have made compost, you could see that, right. So a soil should always have aeration, so that oxygen and all can circulate inside the soil, and the roots can get oxygen from there. So artificial pesticides, the modern intensive agriculture has also reduced the soil structure and aeration. Apart from that, there are consequences like the pest become resistant. Now, as we know, when we keep on utilizing certain kind of pesticides or chemicals to remove those pests, right, the pest, they become resistant over the period of time. Now, when they become resistant, it is very difficult to remove them, right. For example, the mosquitoes that we know are now very much resistant, no matter what we use, what kind of all out we use, or what kind of good night mats we use, it does not affect them. So they have already become resistant. Same way, the plant pest can also become resistant if we keep on utilizing chemicals. They will develop certain kind of resistance, and this is a big danger, because then we won't be able to remove those pests. And also the use of artificial pesticides will lead to decrease in the natural enemies of the plant. Now natural enemies of the pest. Now what are these natural enemies? As I said, there are many insects that are actually not actually harmful for the farmer. These insects, they feed upon other insects, they eat those insects, and this helps the farm from the danger of that of the increasing population of that particular organism. So this means that these organisms are natural enemies, that is natural enemies of these insect pest, right. So, and these are beneficial organisms for the farmers, and these are beneficial organisms for the plant. So when you use pesticides, right, when you use pesticide, so what will happen is the pesticide will enter your soil system. These pesticides will be sprayed on your leaf, on your plants, right, and what will happen is that even the natural beneficial organisms, they will get killed along with the pesticides, and once these natural animals they get once these natural animals they get disappear from your farm, then though you cannot save your farm at all from the pests, because natural enemies are gone, then nobody is going to save, except you will have to use more and more pesticides. Again, these pesticides have their own side effect, right? Now so when this stage is reached, it becomes difficult to control the pest, right? Now one example of this natural enemies that I am talking about is that for example beetles, right? Beetles are pests on plants, right? Now these beetles are pests on plants, right? So this is the enemy of the plant, and this tachinid flies they actually tachinid flies are like parasites. They the tachinid flies, they feed on the larvae of beetles, right? So the tachinid flies they feed on the larvae and eggs of the beetle. So once the larvae and eggs of the beetles are gone, the new beetles are not going to get formed. So this is a natural enemy of beetle, right? So we need to have such organisms that actually helps the plant naturally. Now instead of using chemical fertilizers, we can use such kind of beneficial organisms to save our plants, and this happens naturally, right? So this is an example of natural enemy, right? So this is how the intensive agriculture is causing harm to our environment, to us, to plants, to animals, to every organism associated with it, right? So it is very important that we make a makeshift from modern intensive agriculture to the type of agriculture which is organic farming, because that does not use chemicals, and that ultimately leads us to a sustainable environment, right? And with this we come to the end of our lecture. I am sure that you must have understood what organic farming is, right? And in the coming lectures I am going to make you understand about methods utilized in organic farming and many more other topics related to it. So with this we end the lecture. Thank you for your patient listening. Bye.